Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social podcast. With me here today is Issam.
Yes, thank you for having me.
We are going to be discussing the early season cyclocross races in a bit more detail than last week, because last week's episode was hijacked in a way by the Mountain Bike World Championships. We spent a lot of time covering that, and now with a bit larger sample size as well, we will be covering the racing all across the world. US racing, European racing, British racing, a lot of racing going on. But before that, Issam, we have to take a short moment to talk about the Road World Championships in Rwanda, because Zoe Backset took the U23 Time Trial World title. I can't believe it's the first time she's racing the U23 Time Trial World Championships, but man, what a dominant performance she put in there. Curb stomped the opposition, absolutely destroyed everyone, winning by a minute 50 and 21 kilometers. What a display.
Yeah, I mean, she was somewhat the clear favorite, right? But you still have to do it, and the climate is a bit different, and, preparation. It was going to be a tough task, despite the fact that she was the favorite. But, she delivered, and I think that is the most important thing. Time trial has been something she has been very good at, and it is a discipline that she loves very much, and she's super good at, and delivered the day it mattered. So I think it was a stunning performance.
Interesting, I thought, was to see that Federica Venturelli, third place finisher from Italy, reposted our news announcement on our Instagram page, on her Instagram story, and titled it "A Podium Full of," and then in brackets, former cyclocross riders. Thought that was quite cool. Of course, second place going to the Slovakian Victoria Chladonová, who is a big talent on the cross bike as well. I think with Chladonová, more than everyone, my question is, will she be allowed to stay in cyclocross? We know Visma isn't too keen on that. They already pulled her from the mountain bike, where she was insanely talented as well. But nevertheless, a great performance by Backset, and she said afterwards, well, this was it. I have the junior world title, now I have the U23 world title. Time for the elite world title, and personally I hope she'll make the same decision come the cross season. She'll be a final year U23 there. She has 2 U23 world titles. Yes, Hulst isn't exactly the best course of the year for her, but I would love to see her have a crack at it there as well.
It's time to go. No, but I think you're right. I think I'm somewhat critical of riders that already have won multiple championships in the under 23 category. I think once you've won it, you don't need to win it the second time, to be honest. You can in a way, but I think after the second one it should be somewhat over. Party is over. The elites are waiting for you, and it's time to move up and try to challenge the elite category. I mean, I can understand it, but I think after the second time it should be satisfying enough for it to stick around. I think it's then a sign of moving up. And sure, it's not going to be easy. I'm not saying that it is going to be, but I feel that it's the right thing to do, and you always learn from those moments. It will be tough. It won't be easy from the get-go, but I think it will be very beneficial for the development.
Well, we're talking about cross. Today at work, it was lunchtime. We went out for a walk in the lunch break, a corporate walk. I know I've fallen victim to it real quick, but please don't judge me. I need to get my steps in, get a bit of activity after my desk job. But for the first time, Issam, I felt that autumn cool in the air. The wind was blowing. It wasn't cold, but it was just a little bit chilly. It was that cold feeling in the air, and you know what that means. It means cross is truly coming. It's what is it, 12 days, 11 days until the Belgian season starts with the exact cross in Meulenbeke. I honestly don't know the last time I was so excited for a season opening, probably just because it's not Beringen, and Beringen is not my favorite race at all. I'm quite curious to see what they will do with the course there after the Belgian championships. And we can already see several riders starting their seasons. Not yet in Belgium, but there's been racing in the Netherlands. Kleberg Cross, last week we discussed that Wietse Meeuwse took the win there. Now he went to Germany, Bad Salzensford, for a reworked course there. He took the win on the second day, but on the first day it was Kevin Kuhn who narrowly defeated him. I think we discussed Meeuwse a bit last week, but let's briefly touch upon him as well, because last week we were in a bit of a rush. What do you think of the decision of Crelan Corendon to extend the contract of Meuse?
I think it's a somewhat reasonable decision. No, I think he has to improve on the results of last year. I think to make it worth it. But I feel that he is definitely a rider with some talent and a rider that can grow. He is obviously getting a little bit older now, but I feel that he's still within that region where improvements can be made and are probably going to be made. So I think it's a somewhat understandable decision by Crelan to try and keep him within the team. He's definitely someone that will be beneficial for the team. And yeah, I really hope that he can also make a certain step forward, I guess. It's hard to judge where that step will lead him to in terms of how that will be with the big guns, I guess. But it will be interesting, and I think that he should be ready to make that step. So I can see why Crelan is keeping him on board.
I can definitely see that as well, and I think it makes quite a lot of sense. Personally, I feel that Meuse has been struggling with a unrealistic set of expectations for him for most of his career. As a junior, he finished second at the World Championships in Bogense, but that was the first World Championships that Thibaut Nys partook in. And both Meuse and Ryan Kortjens, who have now retired, both of them were dealt a set of expectations because they were beating Thibaut Nys. These are better than Thibaut Nys. And it didn't matter that they were a year older, had a year more of experience. That was the expectations they were dealt. And for Meuse, he didn't really follow up on that. Yes, he had his U23 years wiped out by COVID, no real standalone races. His first 2 years that were. Then he built a bit back, but sure, he finished third at the World Championships in Hoogheide, but that was as a final year U23. He had the age advantage over the others. So I don't think Meuse is a bad rider. I think it's rightfully deserved that he's been dealt a contract extension by Crelan Corendon. But I also don't think that Wietse Meuse in the field of riders that is currently coming to the forefront will ever be your rider that's going to win 5, 6, 7 races in a season. He'll be lucky to win 1 or 2 classified races, and even that I think is going to be a challenge for him. But he's a solid midfield rider, and I'm excited to see what he can do. A rider who didn't get his contract extended, and that's something we covered over the season, which we both didn't really understand from Charles Ligois, was Kevin Kuhn. He's now at Heizomat. We also covered that we thought that made sense. And now an early season win, Issam.
That's quite the introduction, right? So I think must be good for the mentally how you're feeling entering the season, and that's a feeling that you will carry with you for a couple of races. It will disappear, and at the end of the season you will barely remember it. But it's I think it's important for certain riders to just be up there from the first race, and it's gonna be interesting to see what that new environment will bring for him. I don't think in terms of performance we will see a new Kevin Kuhn or something, but it could be the small things, and sometimes we have seen it last year as well, that in certain races it's about the details and it's about the positioning, and if you just had that one bad lap, that could be the difference between maybe a 5th place and a 12th place. So I'm interested to see how that will play out for someone like Kevin Kuhn. I think he's definitely going to be motivated to have good results, and it will be interesting. So yeah, I think that win is definitely going to feel good, and it's not gonna say us a whole lot, but it says something, I guess.
On the men's side, there's just not been that many big names starting their season yet. It's Meuse, Kuhn and Hendricks. Those are the real standout names in Europe that have started their season, so it's hard to really draw any conclusions from it. Next week, Michael van Toerenhout will start his season in Ilnau, and we'll get a bit more of an indication as to where Kuhn stands. But again, it's early season. Sure, we have Meulenbeke, but after that there's a week of nothing. Many riders are starting their season in Ruddervoorde, so we have time for that, and we shouldn't take this with really too much of a set in stone form level for the entire season, right? So I think it's more interesting to just have these conversations about these riders. Where are they? What can they expect? What's important? And for Koen, what's important is stepping back up from his performances of last season. Last season, in the big Belgian races, he had a few good performances, especially in the World Cup, which is what he targeted. He wanted to perform there, and I would say that was a fairly solid success. He finished in the top 10 of 6 out of the 11 World Cup rounds. He finished in the 12th position of the overall World Cup, so he would want to do maybe a little bit better this year, break into the top 5 again at 1 or 2 occasions. But that's really, I think, the expectations for Koen. And for Hendricks, is kind of a rider of the same caliber, a few years younger. Last year also had a solid season, made a step up, performed slightly worse than Koen. Also did get a World Cup top 10, which has been a long time. And both of them just need to use this low pressure environment and kind of use that opportunity to thrive. Well, we shouldn't be overly analytical of these races, Issam. On the women's side, I did notice one thing, and that is that Julie Brouwers perhaps didn't have this season start I expected, and certainly not the one that she expected. Brouwers for the last year and a half has been saying she wants to become the best female rider from Belgium. She wants to constantly be up there, like approaching the level of Verdonschot. She wants to become Belgian champion and wants to be a well-rounded rider, performing on a lot of different type of courses. And then this season start doesn't really reflect that. On the Kleeberg, she's 4th, 2.5 minutes behind Alicia Frank, beaten also by Kiona Krabbe. Here in Germany, she crashed on the first day, finished 3rd. Despite being sore, she manages 2nd place in Bad Salzenfurth, but at all occasions, she was beaten by Alicia Frank, who swept these races. You and I both said we didn't really understand that Frank wasn't extended by the Keuster Bouwpunt, and honestly, this is kind of the reason why we didn't understand that. She's always good for a number of wins early in the season, always up there, always scoring the points, frequently on the bubble of the top 10 in the Belgian races. It's sometimes a bit questionable what goes on in the transfer strategy of some Belgian teams.
Yeah, it's sometimes a bit random, but I think she's proving a point, and I hope for her that it's not only a very good start of the season, because we have seen that as well, definitely with certain riders, that they start off the season quite well with these sort of preseason races, if you can call them something like that, and then when it somewhat matters more, the performance is declining a little bit, and then going somewhere in December, you barely hear anything. So it's we shouldn't draw any conclusions in that regard, but I definitely think it's positive to have such a start and to be up there and confirm that the legs are good. And hopefully she has planned it all well, and we will see some good results this season from her, because I think that would be, I think for her, definitely proving a point is a hell of a motivation. And I think that might just be the motivation that she needs for better results. So I think that's all just going to be all better for her.
Brouwers has some work to do in that respect if she wants to approach that level of motivation out of spite, perhaps, to beat Frank. But I don't know, actually, if I should be dissatisfied in the season start of Brouwers. I think I am in terms of the expectations she's created herself, but it's also not really a secret that I've never been super high on her. I've praised her sand technique and her technical skills in general, but I've always said she is a product of the Belgian system. She never stood out as a big talent. She doesn't have a huge engine, but she does have the right environment around her. She has Geert Wellens was investing in her. He's now left. He's working with Backset at Canyon SRAM, but still Bart Wellens is there, of course, a former world champion working in that team, and it's paid off in the technique of Brouwers. But her engine isn't there, and that really shows on these fast courses still. So much about Brouwers. I'm curious, Issam, in your take on Laura Molengraaf, because she too is a rider who we've discussed having issues in the last 2 years. It certainly continued over the summer. She broke her collarbone in a gravel event in Valkenburg, came back, first race back, Dutch Nationals, crashed, heavy concussion, out again for, I think, a month and a half of riding, 2.5 months of racing. Obviously, early in the season, she's only starting to get back into it, but I feel like it's kind of an important season for Molegraf, though, because the last 2 seasons haven't been it with illnesses and back injuries.
Slowly but surely, it's getting time to bounce back, I guess, and this should be the season. It's hard to judge if it will happen, what level she will reach this season overall, but I feel it is there. The performance should be there. We should just hope that there's not really any bad luck, no injuries, and everything goes somewhat smoothly, and she is then going to be able to show us what level she can reach if the season is not really, there's not really something that plays up or happens, and if everything is uninterrupted, then I think that she has a shot of showing us the potential that she has. And it's hard, because if you have to fight all the bad luck that you have, and that is obviously mentally also quite a battle, especially if you have that talent and you have already shown in the junior categories that you are up and coming. If it doesn't really come out and you have all that bad luck, it's just must not be amazing for the mental health, and that is just going to hurt. And hopefully she can bounce back. I definitely feel the same way you do in terms of that this is definitely a season. I wouldn't say a do or die season, but definitely a season you have to show some of your worth, and hopefully she's able to do that.
Her contract with FDG is up as well at the end of the year, so let's see what happens there in that aspect. So worth keeping in mind. I do think that you're right. It's overcoming a lot of adversity, and that will be difficult, but let's give it some time. We're early in the season. It's good to signal these things and signal the storylines, which we'll probably be talking about a bit this winter. So let's also wait and see what happens to Kristina Zemanova, first-year elite from Czech Republic. Last year she was out with long COVID. On a positive note, though, Kaya Musgrave, 3rd place on the second day of racing in Bad Salzensfurt. Sure, the American has had more races under her belt. She's been active for a bit longer, but I would still say this is by far her best result of her career. It's a massive step up from the rider she was battling last year, so that should definitely be taken as a positive for her. Before we use that as a bridge to jump to the American racing, Issam, I do want to briefly stop by the racing in the Hope Supercross series. Last weekend we spoke kind of quickly. Lara Verdonschot did what was expected, and whilst that is true, I think we should also just take a little bit more time to acknowledge the fact that she did have that nasty season end last year with 2 narrowed arteries towards her legs. Really struggled with that, didn't have what it took. There was this whole off-season story about Camille van den Berg, her trainer and team manager, leaving the Koesterbouwpunt. But she seems to be off to a solid start, but again, not that much reference for the early season races. But still, encouraging and much needed points for her.
Yeah, I definitely think that it is hard to judge what that will mean for the coming season. But as you stated, I think you're right that it definitely wasn't the easiest of times in terms of the circumstances surrounding her. So far, the signs are positive, and that is what we have to go off on. And if it doesn't go well later on in the season, we might take it into account at that point. But for now, it's just very hard and to judge if it will have any influence. And for these races at the moment, it's, for her at least, it's really all about the points, and she has delivered. And yeah, I see it in that way. That's the most important thing at the moment.
Early in the season, shaking off the rust is always an important thing. Some riders need more races to adapt to the hardness and their technique, and others need fewer. An example of that is Thomas Mean. He took the win in the final 2 rounds of the Hope Supercross after a slow start. What are your expectations for Mean this season, Issam? Last year he took 2 World Cup top 10s, especially his one in Besançon was really impressive. What are you hoping / expecting / requiring from him?
Requiring is a bit hard to judge on, but I hope that he is going to be able to just be that a little bit more at the front, just a little bit more. I think it wasn't a bad season last season, but it could have been just that little better. I just hope that he has just those more highs, I guess, on when the circumstances are more his way, when the course is tough. And I feel then he is definitely a rider that should be battling for somewhere from top 8. And I think he has that in him, and he has shown that last year as well. So it's not that I'm saying something outrageous here, but if he is able to do that a little bit more often in the bigger races, that would be a great sight. And I think he has it in him, but he just has to work out a little bit. And I feel if that is the case, he's definitely a contender for maybe even potentially top 5s in the World Cup if everything goes his way.
Then let's move over to the US for the racing there. The second weekend of the USCX series took place in Rochester. We had a bit of a shake-up compared to last weekend's results. It was actually, instead of Andrew Strohmeyer taking the win both days, Eric Brunner. I think we kind of discussed it last week a little bit already, Issam, but we can maybe touch upon it a little bit more. What do you think is a realistic expectation in European racing for Eric Brunner this year and Andrew Strohmeyer?
Depends. I think that they both should look into something between, World Cups top 15, squeeze in the top 10. I think those are the results they should aim for. The top 10 is obviously, I think, on the higher end of my expectations, and the top 15 is something that would be somewhat within what I think is within the possibilities. And it depends also a little bit on the course and the riders that are attending the race. And the reason why I have some difficulty judging is because of it's very hard to judge how they will plan their season and how that will affect their bodies going into their European campaign. And that makes it just very difficult to judge because, when they are racing in Europe, then sometimes we have this whole, but they had started the season very early and they had to be good in the USCX series, and those are then things that play along with the expectations, and it tempers the expectations also a little bit, and also the results at times. So that makes it just a little bit harder to judge what they're doing right now and the form that they have right now, what it means later on in the season for their European campaign. And that's a struggle that I have, at least. I don't know how you look at that, but for me at least it's just hard to judge where it will be. But I stand by the top 10, top 15. 15 is something that should be the goal for every race, and a top 10 would be a very nice achievement.
I have higher expectations for Andrew Strohmeyer than Eric Brunner in Europe. Brunner has been over here a number of times, not as often as Strohmeyer, but he hasn't shown as much as I've seen from Strohmeyer. I've seen more from Strohmeyer in terms of promise, in terms of performances, in terms of results, in terms of moments. So I would say that is why I think that Strohmeyer should be aiming for a good finish at the World Championships. And with good, I mean, Scott Funson last year was the top finisher for the US in 19th. That's roughly the area where I think Strohmeyer should be shooting for. Probably a bit higher. If he finishes around 15th place, I think he's done a really good job. That does mean that on his day, on his course, and perhaps if the competition doesn't perform as well, or if he has a really, really good day himself, he can break into the top 10 of a World Cup. For Brunner, as much as I think it would be amazing to see some Americans reach that level, I just see more potential in Strohmeyer doing that than in Brunner, because, like I said, I haven't really seen Brunner do it over the past couple of years that he was in Europe, be it at Christmas or at the World Championships. On the women's side, Issam, we discussed Magali Rochette quite extensively last week, but I would like to therefore highlight Manon Bakker this week. I think Bakker is in front of an important season. She's out of contract, and honestly, I risk sounding like the version of myself 2 years ago, because that was when Bakker was last out of contract, and we came in a similar situation. The year before wasn't bad, it also wasn't great. It was Back then, Manon Bakker, kind of the eternal talent, like, oh, surely at some point that big breakthrough will come. And then in that year she was fighting for a contract, it did appear to come. She won the World Cup in Val di Sole, she got a couple of other televised podiums, and we were like, damn, okay, finally, Manon Bakker, she's here at the big stage. And then it never really came last year. Like, she had a strong outing in Dendermonde. She was in contention for a podium place, but ultimately lost out. And that was kind of it in terms of great performances. And now, here we are again. Her contract is expiring. And what does she need to do to earn a new contract? Is that winning a World Cup? Is that finishing in the top 5 of every World Cup race? What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think that it is that I agree with your assessment of her season being good-ish, but it never really had, apart from Dendermonde, really, it didn't really have an outstanding result. We are kind of waiting for that for a while now, and I don't know, it's this season we need to see more Dendermondes in a way for me to be somewhat satisfied, because I think we have already seen such a season last year. I don't want to see that again. I don't think I wouldn't consider a repeat of last season a good season, to be honest. I think, and that's not in terms of how I look at it. How I look at the results objectively. I think that the results, if you look at them without really judging the athletes, I think it's solid results. There's nothing really wrong with them. But I think if you look at the athlete and what we expected and where we are at currently, and it's just it's not great, and you kind of expect better. So it's just from that point of view, I think it's somewhat logical to ask a little bit more, and I hope that will be that we will see that in this season. I think it's possible if the courses are there in terms of the circumstances and all that, and it's cyclocross, it will happen. The courses will always come your way eventually, and the chances will come, and she has to take them. And I think that is going to be important for her to take those chances and be up there when the course suits her best. And if she does that, I think she can call it a good season, and hopefully she can improve from last season. That is what I kind of want to see. I want to see an improvement. I'm not asking for that much.
In a way, Bakker will be tied into a duel with Ribeirol, not necessarily for a contract, because Ribeirol offers as Belgian champion guaranteed publicity, but I think as long as she can beat Ribeirol consistently, she would probably be extended by the team. I think it would be hard for them to justify not to, but a lot will depend on the overall situation of the team, right? There's quite a lot of people who signed a 2-year extension last year. Some of them will be out of contract. What happens to Emile Verstringen? Does he pursue the road more and therefore sign a deal with Alpecin? Like, all these factors come into play. What happens to Joran Viseur? I'm quite sure that there will be teams like Paul Sousa out for his signature as well. So that will be an interesting factor that comes into the overall situation here. But for Bakker, her situation is also a bit not dependent on results. And I don't know if you agree with me, Issam, but when they make a decision like, okay, Manon Bakker, contract extension, it's likely going to be a 2-year extension. And by the end of that contract, she'll be 29. And you kind of sign a rider at this point in their career, 27 to 29, expecting that the level they have at this point is roughly what it will be. There's few riders who at that point still make the step that Michael van Toerenhout made. Many kind of are at the top of their curve or approaching it. There's not that much more coming. And where 2 years ago for Bakker, like I just said, she still had the stamp of eternal talent and it was waiting for the breakthrough, that's gone now, right? Like, the eternal talent part is washed out. She's 26. Her racing age is going to be 27. What is there more for her? Like, if she is the same as what she is last year, that's a fine level. It's a solid top 10 rider, scoring top 10s in many classified races. But is that what the team then will go for? Or will they consider, hey, we already have Ribeirol, we have Casasola, we have Xaide van Sinai, who we believe in. We've just acquired Sanne Laurijsen. What we are going to do is maybe just Manon Bakker, you're a bit too old for us, and we don't look for a rider that can finish in the places 5 to 10. We have a rider that can do that. We have one rider, Casasola, who we believe is even better. Instead, we're going to recruit a younger rider, perhaps on the men's side. There will be heavy competition for Gilles Lejeune. But also on the women's side, there's plenty of riders that they would be interested in bringing on board to get those performances. So perhaps where I'm heading with my conclusion is that regardless of the results, the overarching question for Crelan Corendon is what direction do they take in their rider recruitment?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think that it is for Crelan definitely time to, or not time, but they will definitely be in such a position in which they have to look if it's worthy to continue, or if it's maybe better to put the resources elsewhere, and that, you know, talents are sometimes going to be a bit more interesting than someone that you already have, in which you know what the performance will be, and you sometimes a team likes to take a gamble with a certain talent, despite the fact that maybe the performances are not there yet, and that's just how it goes. That's how life goes, I guess, and that is definitely something that within the expectations of what we can expect, and we have to wait and see. I think for now it's if I was Bakker, I wouldn't be thinking about that all too much. I would think about how I can make my season the best season I have in a couple of years, and try to get as many good results when the courses suit me. And even if they are not suiting me, I still have to be somewhat up there and make sure that I put a stamp on this season. And I hope she does.
Certainly, she should just focus on her performances, and whether she will then fit or not fit within the team structure of Crelan Corendon, that remains to be seen. But certainly good results will always increase her chances of getting a contract, be it at Crelan Corendon or elsewhere. Issam, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for having me.
That wraps up this episode of the Cyclocross Social podcast. We will be back next week. Then I will have on-the-ground reporting from the USCX series in Baltimore, Charm City. 2 days of action, my first 2 races of the season. I am quite stoked, to be honest, to be there. And after that, we record our first preview episode. Looking forward to the Exactcross in Meulenbeke with some new features coming into the mix as well. I look forward to it. Issam, thank you again so much, and we will be back very soon. Goodbye.